Good morning everyone and welcome to Shropshire Council's Cabinet meeting of Wednesday the 20th of July 2022. I'm obliged to inform you that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and can I remind members to please identify your name and role before speaking so that it's clear to those watching and listening to the meeting who is speaking to each item. I will be moving item 9 to the end of the agenda as I shall be leaving the room and Councillor Potter will take over the chair. Before we start today's meeting, it is with huge sadness that I have to tell you that yesterday Councillor Les Winwood passed away. Councillor Winwood has been a councillor for the Bridgnorth area since 1983, so almost 40 years of service. I'm not having this confirmed as yet, but I understand he was also mayor at least once. What I would say about Les, having known him as both an officer and also as a member, is that he never changed. He was as delightful to you when I was an officer as he was to me when I was a member, and he's shown me tremendous support since becoming leader. Les absolutely loved where he lived, and he loved the people who lived there, and he worked tirelessly for them. He will be incredibly missed by all of us. Once I have more information, I will let you know any further details, but it is a very sad day for us. This is also the first Cabinet meeting since the release of the child sexual exploitation inquiry from Telford, and I just wanted to make a statement on Cabinet's behalf. Last week, the independent inquiry Telford Sexual Exploitation published its report after more than 3 years of work and hearing harrowing testimony from many brave survivors. I want to begin by reiterating this administration's view that exploitation in all its forms is a horrific crime, which must be rooted out at every opportunity. I am sure all councillors here will agree with this view. The inquiry has shown how sexual exploitation has ruined the young lives of over 1,000 of its victims in Telford, stretching back for over 40 years into the 1970s, and that opportunities to prevent this were missed by many agencies. Our thoughts are with the victims and their families who must live with the impact of this crime. We must ensure they get the support they need and that we all work together to prevent this ever happening again. The inquiry was commissioned by and has focused on our neighbouring authority of Telford and Wrekin, but the lessons that must be learnt apply across the whole of the UK, as including here in Shropshire. Nowhere is free from this crime. Thankfully, awareness is now far greater. In Shropshire now we have much stronger safeguards in place to help partners and the community identify, intervene and protect those at risk. Practice among the very broad range of partners involved in protecting children at risk of sexual and other exploitation is now very different from that in '89, the start of the period covered by the inquiry. Like all authorities involved in looking after children, the conclusions and recommendations are vital for learning and an opportunity for an in-depth review. It offers us a chance to further improve practice. While Shropshire Council is a different authority to its predecessor, Shropshire County Council, and whilst I have only been a councillor since 2017, I do want to take this opportunity to offer my sincere apologies to any victims that were failed by any shortcomings in Shropshire County Council's practice prior to 1998, when responsibility for social care transferred to Telford and Wrekin Council. As an authority, we are reviewing the 47 recommendations and will apply all those that improve practice here. There is one recommendation on licensing of taxis that applies directly to us and other authorities in the region. We will do whatever is in our powers to ensure we implement this as quickly as possible. However, this also relies on a similar commitment from other councils. We will also be asking the relevant scrutiny committees to look at these recommendations further to ensure that our processes are clear and open for all to see. I also want to stress that Shropshire Council has voluntarily supported the inquiry. This has included providing significant documentary evidence, as well as contacting and helping put the inquiry in touch with a number of key former Social County Council employees who have then given evidence to the inquiry. I have seen some claims that Shropshire Council has not cooperated with this inquiry, and this is simply not true. In his report, Tom Crowther QC could not be clearer. He says, and I quote, "There will be conspiracy theorists that may read into this that Shropshire Council has something to hide and therefore has deliberately not provided documents. I want to address this head on. I do not believe that this is the case. The Council believes it engaged with the inquiry proportionately and in a reasonable manner and provided the inquiry with information that was more relevant to that which was originally originally requested. The number of documents the Council has submitted also does not take into account of the many thousands of Shropshire County Council documents and children's case files that were transferred to Telford and Wrekin in 1998 and formed part of the evidence submitted by Telford and Wrekin. However, if there are survivors who wish to access their files from the Shropshire County Council period pre-1998, and if these files are still in our possession, we're committed to doing all we legally can to help them do so. Firstly, and I cannot stress strongly enough, everyone has a part to play to ensure we are together doing all we can to stop the exploitation of young people, from our employees, our partners and professionals to the wider community. If anyone is concerned about or thinks a child or young person is at risk of exploitation, then you can contact either anonymously Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111, or you can call the Council's first point of contact team on 0345 678 9021, and this is a 24-hour number. Call the police on 111 as well, but if you think someone is in an immediate danger, please call 999. We continue to work as part of Shropshire's Safeguarding Community Partnership and to raise awareness of all forms of exploitation, including child sexual exploitation. Thank you very much indeed. So moving on to item number 1 now, onto the main agenda. We have apologies for absence from Councillor Dean Carroll and Councillor Cecilia Motley. Councillor Cecilia Motley was going to join us online, but she's not been very well, so I expect that she's perhaps not with us. Item number 2, disclosable interests. Do we have any disclosable interests around the room? Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Leader. It's item number 9, the draft policy of the enforcement determination of financial penalties for breaching of relevant letting agency requirements. Councillor Gwilym Butler, Clip Mortimer, pecuniary interest, and I will be taking no part in the debate and will leave the room.
And I would just like to repeat what Councillor Butler said. I too have a pecuniary interest, will take no part of the debate and leave the room, and I will actually be moving that item to the end of the agenda so that Councillor Potter can take over. Councillor Gittins?
Yeah, Councillor Rob Gittins, I too have a DPI on agenda item 9 and will take no further part in the meeting at that point. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item number 3, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on 6th of July 2022. I'm happy to propose those. Do I have a seconder?
Councillor Ed Potter, I'll second those.
Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you very much. So moving on to public question time. We have 2 questions from the public today and Tim Collard will be reading both of them. The first question is from Brian Ellery.
Thank you, Leader. His question is this: why is it the case that after 3 to 4 years of complaints to highways about the so-called traffic calming measures at Otley Road, has no remedial action been taken? And as the original spec was passed by independent consultants employed by the council, will these consultants be held responsible for all the rectification costs? And if not, why not?
Thank you, Tim. That question is actually to Councillor Dean Carroll, but as he is not here today, I will read the answer to this one. Officers are currently engaged in progressing a number of Section 106 project schemes across the county, and Otley Road is an important project on that list. But acknowledging also that the development has been ongoing off Otley Road as part of the Shrewsbury South Urban Extension, and where utility services have been installed along the road as part of the new development coming forward to meet the new housing, retail and commercial needs. These utility interventions along Otley Road are now coming to an end to allow a road scheme to proceed across the whole length between Weeping Cross and Millbrace roundabouts. WSP have been commissioned this financial year to review options for the road, and the draft has been completed. The next step, once the options are confirmed, will be public engagement on the project, where we will consult with residents and businesses and contributors on the potential designs. This is planned to happen this calendar year, and will also look at the raised tables and crossing points that were fully developer funded. Moving forward, the work to be carried out along Otley Road will be funded via financial contributions secured from the developments, which was a requirement as part of the delivery of the master plan and subsequent planning consents. The next question comes from Mike Streetley, and again, Tim's going to read out that question.
Thank you. The question is this. In the project timeline set out in the outline business case for the proposed Northwest Road in Shrewsbury, now he describes that as figure 60, which is available for viewing on the public website. 295 days is allowed for a full public inquiry. Does Shropshire Council still anticipate a full public inquiry to be held on the road? If the full inquiry is held, how long would it be expected to take, and what budget has been allowed? Figure 60 shows the preparation of the full business case progressing in parallel with the public inquiry. Would this still be the plan?
Thank you, Tim. Again, Councillor Dean Carroll is not here, so Councillor Ed Potter is reading the answer.
Thank you very much. The council simply doesn't know whether there will be a challenge to any planning decision, be it in favour or against the scheme, nor whether any challenge will be accepted for a public inquiry. It is, however, prudent to build in an assumption of public inquiry into the delivery timescales so that the risk of an inquiry can be absorbed. Until the nature of any challenge is understood, it is not possible to comment on the length or cost of an inquiry. It would still be intended to develop the full business case in parallel with an inquiry in order to meet funding windows. However, funding will obviously be conditional on a scheme gaining planning approval.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. We now move on to item number 5, which is member question time. We have 2 questions, both from Councillor Julia Buckley. So, Tim, you're off duty for this one. Councillor Buckley.
Thank you. So my first question is that since November 2021, I've reported 103 cases for reactive repairs on the new Fix My Street system. This is for Bridge North West and Tassley. Of these, 22.3% have been fixed, 43.6% are closed, and 34.1% are open. So that means 77.7% of all reports on the last 8 months have still not been fixed, because this classification of closed simply means it's been allocated for future repair or not. And an example could be a footway surface problem that was logged on the 31st of March this year. It's considered closed, but the only email I've had, it states, and it's just a standard reply, "We have received your report of the issue and will update you when appropriate." Nothing since. So whilst the computer system will tell us that the average waiting time for cases to be fixed across Shropshire is 42 days, the case I've just referred to has been ongoing for 105 days and has not even been allocated. So my question is, why are reports being classed as closed when further action is still required, in some cases with absolutely no timescale? Why are repairs in Bridge North West taking so much longer than the Shropshire average? And should we, as members and members of the public, continue to spend our time logging issues for repair if only 1 in 5 ever get done?
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Answering the question, Councillor Rob Gittins.
Yes, thank you, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Buckley, for your question. I will now read out the answer. Fix My Street is still new to the service, and we are working through a number of stages to improve the system and the integration with our internal systems. The second phase to improve feedback will be undertaken over the next year as the funding is made available by the council, which allows the service to increase staffing capacity to service the more nuanced feedback and upgrade its confirmed system. In order to develop Fix My Street, the next step to provide more refined automated feedback. Jobs shown as closed is in Fix My Street terminology for reports that are unlikely to be resolved as fixed in the short term. For us, this generally relates to works in the programme. This is a location that has been identified as requiring follow-up work, but the timescale is currently unknown. There are many issues which have been addressed considerably quicker than the average, but also some more complex issues that are taking longer to respond to. But this is not unique to Bridge North West. For the list of fixed jobs for Councillor Buckley, the average fixed time is 30 days. It is valuable for members and the public to continue to log issues. The public travel far more of the network on a daily basis than the service can cover. Though our inspection regime, we inspect the whole network over a year. So for many roads, there can be a long time between inspections, and by providing good quality information, the public can greatly assist in identifying issues across the service. Over the last 18 months, the Highways team have made demonstrable in their improvements in their reaction time in addressing issues that meet the council's intervention criteria. And in the last 6 months have made significant progress in decreasing the backlog of issues that were in the system. The Fix My Street system is still a work in progress, and training needs and system updates continue to ensure that the status updates are as accurate and as meaningful as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gittins. Councillor Buckley, supplementary question.
Yes, so the statement that you've given is contradictory, isn't it? You're claiming that the average fixed time is 30 days across the council, and that Bridge North results are no better or worse than anywhere else. But I've shown you that 78% of the issues in Bridge North over the last 8 months have not been fixed. So those two statements cannot coexist happily. One of them is incorrect. My point really is not about the capacity of the system to log the problem. I think you're right, residents are brilliant and councillors were getting better at using this portal to log problems. The problem I'm alluding to is that behind the system, they are not being fixed in appropriate timescales equitably. So I would like to challenge you, it really should be Dean Cowan, and I'm disappointed he's not here, but I can see Richard Marshall's online. So I'd like to challenge the Highways Department to produce a map that shows where the backlog of repairs have been done. So you can quash any fears that I may have that this is not being done equitably across Shropshire, because we need, if you want members, whether members of the public or elected members, to keep using the system, you've got to give us some faith that you're actually going to repair the things we report to you. One example from here that I had to, one example of mine was logged in. My simple question is that I would like a map to be produced that demonstrates the geography of where these backlog repairs have been completed.
Sorry, my mic's off. If you can make a note of that, and I will get the map done for you. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Your second question.
Okay, moving on to a different topic. In the financial outturn report we discussed at full council last week, I was surprised to learn about the £2.5 million overspend on the North West Relief Road. I would like some more information about it, as none was provided. Is this overspend a variance on the projected budget of the global cost, or is it a time cash flow problem, i.e. was it a cost from a future year which I would like to believe was brought forward? If it's a variance, then for what element of the project does it relate to, and how was the overspend approved? What percentage variance was this on the agreed budget, and how was this approved within procurement rules? What impact does this have on our strategic risk register for this project? In short, if we're able to overspend by such a large margin within the first year of the project, what financial implications will that have for the project as a whole, and does it remain viable in the current fiscal climate?
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Councillor Gwilym Butler.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley, for your question. It's Councillor Gwilym Butler here, portfolio holder for finance and corporate resources. The response is as follows. The budget for 21-22 was approved within the capital programme for the North West Relief Road of 5.021 million. At this point in time, to manage risk and ensure maximum financial benefit to the council, the budget was funded entirely from DFT Large Local Majors Grant and was based on an assumed progress over the financial year. As at the 31st of March 2022, the programme had progressed at a faster rate than profiled. And this was reported as an overspend against the profile for that financial year, i.e. the budget in the place for 21-22. The overspend does not represent an overspend against the whole programme. There is still 40.773 million grant, 8.265 million Section 106 developer contributions and 19.846 million capital receipts earmarked for the programme. The budget for 22-23 for the North West Relief Road is 3.962 million, funded entirely from DFT Large Local Majors Grant. Any spend over 22-23 ahead of or behind the estimated profile will continue to be reported as an under or overspend for that financial year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Councillor Buckley.
Yes, so can you just clarify then? I'm very pleased to hear that it's actually that we've worked ahead and it's taken from the future year. So can you clarify that that has then been removed from the profile budget for 22-23 because we've already done that work? And secondly, in the report, you explained that last year it was funded from capital receipt projections. So are you saying that because it was entirely covered by DFT, that DFT will reconcile that?
I've got Ben Jay, who should be online for us, who is our Assistant Director for Finance. Are you there, Ben?
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Yes, I am here. You can hear me okay?
Yep, just about. Can you take those? Could you repeat the question for us, Julia, please?
Yes, so I'm very pleased to hear that it was activity that was completed ahead of schedule and that all comes under the DFT grant. So given that we were 2.5 million ahead of ourselves and it appears as an overspend, will that now be removed from the profile for 22-23 because we've already done the work? And secondly, at the time, the overspend was funded from the capital receipt projections, but we're told it's covered entirely by the DFT grant. So will the DFT grant reconcile the money that we've, in the interim, taken from our capital receipt projection?
Yes, Councillor, I think that's exactly what's intended to happen. Obviously, the work has progressed in the last year ahead of the profile, exactly as Councillor Butler has indicated. So we'll just be adjusting the funding profile as we go into the later stages of the project.
And will it be reconciled by the DFT? So currently the report states it was funded from the capital receipt projections, but the councillor is saying that it should be funded by the DFT. So can it be reconciled when it occurred and was spent out of year?
Yes, the grant that we receive is against the project as a whole. The requirement is to submit to DFT the estimated spending profile, where there is a difference between the application of that grant receipt against the actual delivery of the scheme, as we have in this case. It's incumbent upon the council to use short-term funding while the remainder of that DFT grant is received. We did that through using capital receipts, and I think the point in the report that was being made there is that we're doing that through capital receipts rather than through any other form of borrowing, for example, when it could be a resultant cost to the council. Clearly, capital receipts are done at nil cost to the council. The overall cost across the entire project will therefore remain within or is currently projected to remain within the grant which has been agreed with DFT.
Just want to be clear, because it wasn't taken from existing capital receipts, it's taken from projected capital receipts. So it doesn't exist yet. So just because it was quite a long answer and the audio is not very good here. So just yes or no, will the DFT pay us back the 2.5?
Yes, that was exactly what I was saying, and I apologise if that wasn't coming across clearly when I spoke.
That's super. Thank you very much.
Councillor Butler.
All I was going to say, Councillor Buckley or any other members, if they want a briefing on the finances of anything this council's doing at any time, they don't have to wait to bring it to Cabinet. Just give me a ring and I will arrange for officers to do it for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. So that brings us to the end of the public and members question time. So we now move on to item number 6, which is scrutiny items, and we have 2 of the chairs of scrutiny with us today. So first off, Councillor Claire Wild, Chair of Performance Management Scrutiny Committee.
Thank you very much, Leader. So my name is Claire Wild. I'm the councillor for the Severn Valley, and I just wanted to really update Cabinet and get their agreement on the progress of the ambulance task and finish group. So we had our first meeting yesterday, and the first thing we did was unanimously agree that an inquiry was not needed into this topic. Instead, I'll just read you a brief summary. Historically, we all know that there's been an underperformance in achieving response times in the area for ambulances. And that the delay getting to patients and then the delay in getting people to an appropriate setting to be treated can impact on the outcomes for the person. It was also highlighted that this can result in increased costs to the NHS and potential demand for other services such as adult social care as they require ongoing treatment, medication and support. So we identified three distinct areas, and we're going to spend a day looking into each particular area. So the first area we're going to look at is prevention, 111 primary care. So that's about avoiding people having to call an ambulance or going to the hospital and A&E. The second focus will be on their arrival at A&E, the admittance to hospital, the handover and the access to treatment and beds. And the last area will be the discharge from hospital, ensuring there's sufficient staff to deliver the 24-hour care and availability of beds and care in the community settings. So it's a really important piece of work, and we're going to come back by October with our findings, because I think it's really important that we don't let this drift. I'm happy to take any questions. Obviously, there was a lot of work that sat behind that summary, but if anybody's got any questions they'd like to ask, I'm happy to take those questions.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Can I just also clarify, if I'm right, some of the findings from these reports will then form the work programme for the Health Overview Scrutiny Committee. Is that also your understanding?
Yes, it is. And yes, what we want to do is we want to try and iron out some of the issues, and then we'll distribute those issues around the various scrutiny committees. But it's such a large piece of work that we want to identify those issues first.
Thank you. Councillor Buckley.
Just to say thank you, Claire, for leading this task and finish. And I know that it has, as you say, unanimous support across all the groups, and my members are really supportive of how this was approached. 2 questions really. One is, do we have any timescale for these 3-day sessions? Because it's quite an urgent issue, as you're aware. It's becoming ever more urgent, and I know that the ambulance service have given a date in August when it's just going to collapse, so that it needs to be urgent. And secondly, can we ensure that the investigations include considering looking at the hospital discharge programme, which was this additional set of money which was used for exactly one of the categories you referred to? It was sort of an injection of funds to help that outflow around care, and a lot of the information we're hearing is that made a big difference, but that money was stopped at the end of March this year. So if that could be included in the umbrella of things that are looked at, I think it could help us understand what has already or has not worked. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, so coming back there, I mean, I'd call this group really the rainbow group, because there's one member from every group sitting on it. And I think that's really important, because obviously this is not political. This is about, the future, or trying to help the future of our health service. So we're trying to organise it as quickly as we can. So as I said, we will finish our findings by October. I haven't got the date with me. Rachel might know when the first full day is. It's not very far away, but I have to say, Julia, we've got to gather a lot of information, so we're trying to do it as expediently as we can. Rachel, I don't know if Rachel's got the date of the first meeting.
Thank you. I was just checking. thought it was the 9th of September with some pre-meetings in between. We were going to have a number of pre-meetings. The 9th of September was the first full day when we brought everybody in, but I will double check through the meeting and put that in so that I can confirm the times for everybody.
Yeah, so basically what we're doing, Julia, is we're trying to gather together all the information we need, and then we'll have 3 meetings quite close together in September. And as I say, they will be full day meetings. So we're really going to look at this, and I think it's really important. As you know, it's a watershed moment for us, really, because we've got the ICS, we've got this work, and what I'm hoping to do is, as I think I said when we talked to the ICB board yesterday, was to actually give some focus, because I think it's incumbent upon us to give some focus to the areas that actually need looking at as a priority. And obviously what will come out of this, hopefully, will be the key areas that we need to look at.
Thank you, Claire. I've got Councillor Vasma. Just to clarify one thing, Councillor Buckley, the discharge monies are being extended on a month-by-month basis at the moment, so it didn't stop at the end of March. Councillor Vasma.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I very much welcome these investigations. I think it's just what scrutiny should be about, and so I'm very, very happy. I mean, the situation with our ambulance service is, I think, is a disastrous one at the moment, and I certainly worry about the possibility of the ambulance service being able to respond if there is a major incident in the West Midlands area. But my question really relates to data. I mean, I know there's been problems in the past getting data about from the ambulance service, and I wondered whether, to what extent you've been in touch with the ambulance service, and to what extent they're going to cooperate with your investigations.
Okay, so Tom Dodds is leading all this. Tom Dodds is the scrutiny officer for HOSC, or HASC, whichever way you want to call it, and he has assured us that he can gather up all the information that is needed, and Rachel will probably confirm that as well, David.
Thank you, Claire.
Do you want
Councillor Simon
confirmation?
Jones. Sorry, Councillor Simon Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Councillor Simon Jones, portfolio holder for social care and public health. I just wanted to comment with regards to the hospital discharge. The government yesterday actually published its Better Care Fund framework guidance for 22-23, and as part of this, councils will be asked to develop capacity and demand plans for intermediate care covering both admission, avoidance and hospital discharge across health and social care to help the system prepare for winter. This is part of the Better Care Fund sort of funding stream. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon.
Excuse me, Leader. Just one more thing. I need to declare a prejudicial interest in item number 9, and I shall be leaving Cabinet after the scrutiny items.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. That's noted. So, moving on, we now have Councillor Joyce Barrow, who is the chairman of the Place Scrutiny Committee. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for introducing me. It'll save me doing it as well. I'm here today attending Cabinet for 2 reasons. One is to provide an update on the discovery of issues on new build private housing estates, and 2, to ask the Cabinet revisit the task and finish group recommendations with regard to A-boards and pavement licences. New build housing estates. At my committee's most recent meeting, I received a question from Councillor Julia Evans, representing Radbrook Division. Julia raised concerns about unfinished works on new build developments in Radbrook, including raised metalworks on unfinished roads for more than a year, poor landscaping, children's play areas not constructed, blocked drains from builders' debris, speed restricting plateaus, either non-existent or too high for cars, trees left to die before and after planting, disabled and vulnerable residents left with high heating bills due to doors not sealing properly, and finally wildlife mitigation not carried out in the form of holes in fences, bird and bat boxes not in situ, fences not completed, leaving a neighbouring boundary in question, and delayed handover periods after completion. Julia asked, why is planning enforcement so weak? Why are housing developments not inspected thoroughly? Why are developers not held to account, leaving the expense to the council or residents to put right? And what will be done to rectify this? Separate to this question, I received a number of photographs from Julia that highlighted the issues she was raising through the committee. As both the Executive Director of Place and the Assistant Director for Economic Growth and Planning were attending, I decided to raise the issue with them in the meeting. It soon became apparent that ensuring that new developments are completed in good time and to a high standard was complex and required a multi-agency response. It was also clear to my committee that there is work to do to meet this standard. My committee has therefore agreed that it would set up a working group to explore this issue and to bring recommendations back to Cabinet. As regards signs and banners and the Task and Finish group, in early 2020, the Place Overview Committee concluded a Task and Finish review of assorted street scene matters, making recommendations to Cabinet. These included Shropshire Council set and actively enforce a policy for A-boards. The policy for A-boards should include the regulations contained in the body of this report. The cost of an A-board permit should reflect the total cost of administering and enforcing the scheme. Shropshire Council consult with town and parish councils on supplementary policy A-boards for their local area. Shropshire Council proceed with its intention to increase its charges for pavement permits to a level that fully recovers the cost of administering and enforcing the scheme. These fees will then be subject to an annual review. Shropshire Council does not, and I emphasise not, proceed with an additional cost recovery fee of £200 on new and annual renewals of pavement permits. At the time these recommendations came to Cabinet, the world was in the midst of a pandemic that had resulted in many shops in retail centres being closed for prolonged periods. Cabinet therefore declined to make a decision on these recommendations. The pandemic has now largely abated and Shropshire's retail centres have largely returned to their pre-pandemic footfall levels. It would therefore ask Cabinet to receive these recommendations again and to decide in due course whether to accept or to reject them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Barrow. On your first point regarding your scrutiny's work regarding the housing states, I'm sure that there's probably not a member around this table who wouldn't welcome you looking into that, because as you say, it is a complex issue. With regards to the sign and banners, and I do remember this coming to Cabinet some years ago, and I will ask that I think Daniel has sent me the scrutiny officer has sent me the information for that, so I will ask that that comes back to us in the form of a report so we can send it forward officially. Thank you, Councillor Barrow. Any questions for Councillor Barrow? No. Thank you very much indeed, Joyce.
Thank you.
So moving on to item number 7. This is the report of the Housing Supervisory Board and it's the shareholder update. Councillor Rob Gittins will introduce the report, but the Housing Supervisory Board Chairman, Councillor Rob Macy, will present it. So over to Councillor Gittins first.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Well, just as you said, really, we're joined here today by Councillor Rob Macy, Chair of the Housing Supervisory Board. Councillor Macy would like to say a few words and present the report and just go through all the great work that the board is doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gittins. Councillor Macy.
Thank you, Leader. Obviously, the Housing Supervisory Board takes its responsibility seriously around the initiative, which is Cornovia and building the homes. It's a significant financial investment for the council and a key driver in meeting one of the council's and county's key challenges, which is namely meeting unmet housing need. The tone of the Housing Supervisory Board meetings has been, could probably be surmised as diligent, probing yet supportive. My observations as chair would be that this is at least in part due to the confidence that members have had in the team at Cornovia, extending from the company's own board, which is chaired by Derek Humphreys, and that board has demonstrated their diverse skill set to keep the company and its plans moving forward in what have been challenging times.
I'd also say the confidence extends to the staff at Cornovi. Since starting the job, Harpreet Rayet has proven his value and ability to think round problems on what in some cases in initial sites are difficult sites to bring forward, hence they haven't happened before, time and again, and he's built a team of staff around him that we know he respects and relies upon. The latest business plan was presented to the Housing Supervisory Board in March of this year. It was commented on by members as being both well thought out yet ambitious. However, this did not stop the board challenging on whether this could even more could be done to help with the delivery against unmet need. Particularly there were questions around the levels of affordables, energy efficiency and other matters. So we pick those up regularly at meetings as they occur. Ultimately, the board were content with the balance being struck and recognised that there were challenging signs in the industry at that time. Obviously, it's moved on somewhat since then. Moving forward to where the company finds itself now and in delivering on the sites, obviously selling the first property, the first site out entirely of its properties in Shrewsbury at the Thrift is a good milestone for the council and for the company to reach. It's great to see them handing over good quality design houses with space and energy rated A. Obviously on that site as well, I understand that we've managed, it's a number of key workers have managed to secure homes as well, which is something we've long talked about as a council, as one of the groups that we're struggling with unmet need. Also the Ellesmere scheme is still progressing, and with note to that, that will have solar panels on each of the properties. That was one of the things the board's challenged on. Originally that was not the case. The board challenged and the company have accepted that, built it into the plans, and we'll see that going forward. So really I want to thank members of the board from all the parties. They've brought forward challenge, but they've also brought forward encouragement, which I think is what is needed on there. Obviously, the plans at the moment look at delivering, I think it's 728 houses over the business plan period. There's also the potential for, I think it's 346 houses where there is reasonably high confidence that could come into the plan. From our point of view, obviously the work of the board will continue. It's a very challenging industry, as everybody will know, particularly it has ramped up over the last 6 months in terms of the inflation and the costs and along that regard. So we think our job is probably going to get even more difficult, but that's what we're there to do. That's what the company are there to meet. And at the moment we have that confidence that they are keeping aware of those, and obviously the challenge that they're trying to meet and the pressure around unmet housing need hasn't disappeared, it hasn't changed, if anything it still increases. So the report sort of runs through the work that we have done. Obviously it mentions that we've approved the business plan, we will continue to meet, and the intention is to come back to yourselves as Cabinet to report on a regular basis on the work that we've done and flagging any sort of issues that Cabinet need to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Macy. So the report is for noting, and I imagine that Councillor Gittins will propose it. Do I have a seconder for that?
Councillor Simon-Jones, I'm happy to second.
Thank you. Got a question from Councillor David Vasmer.
Thank you, Councillor David Vasmer, leader of the Dem Group. Just a couple of things really. Well, to welcome this report. I think it's very useful, and a lot of good activities and good work being done. I'd like to see more on the council achieving its climate change objectives and in this particular area. But the one thing that did concern me, and maybe I haven't got all information, but on 8.5 it says receiving internal reports from directors and officers of the company. To date, no internal and audit reports have been presented to the HSB from the company. Presumably the HSB, the Housing Supervising Board, does have a role as far as the audit is concerned, and I just was interested to see whether you have plans to receive reports, or will there will be reports in the future.
Councillor Macy, can you answer that question?
Yeah, just on the first point, you said you'd welcome seeing more on achieving climate change goals. What specifically, just so I can take that back?
I think not specific goals as such, but in terms of more, I suppose, more activity from the Housing Supervisory Board on that particular issue, really. I think that
it's
I mean,
just hard because it is challenged at each meeting. We do go through it. Obviously, we have members from yourself and other groups on there. So obviously, if there's something specific, I can take that.
I've
way.
got nothing
Otherwise,
specific.
you can be reassured that it is challenged at each meeting.
But that I mean, just in terms of the report, I noticed that maybe they could have been a bit more about it. But you know, I do welcome the achievements so far, and I've been to some of the presentations that you've done, and you know, that I know there's keenness to meet as many climate change objectives as possible. But so I just wondered what also on the audit.
Yeah, and in terms of the audit, yes, there will be audit reports coming to us. Obviously, internally, we have the Officer Working Group that looks at this from the council perspective. So yes, they will be coming through to us. Obviously, we at the board we have a split in most of our meetings between the public session and then private session, because obviously there is commercial sensitivities around it as well, but you can be assured that yes, the board are looking at that, and that we will be receiving those. Obviously, depending on which source it is and so on, it falls within the different sessions, but ultimately the company's board as well is responsible for their mechanisms within the company.
Leader, if I could just butt in, sorry. We do have officers online. I think we got Harpreet and Jane on the line, so maybe they'd like to come in just to expand on those comments. Thank you.
Absolutely. Is that Harpreet or Jane? Who would like to speak first?
I'm happy to. Sorry.
I knew that would happen. Jane Trethewey, who's our Assistant Director. Jane, over to you first.
Thank you very much, Chair. So basically, it's correct. At the moment, there haven't been audits to report so far, but there will be audit reporting coming through to Housing Supervisory Board from Cornavy Developments Limited at its September meeting. So just to assure Councillor Vasma, that is part of the Housing Supervisory Board's role, and it is something that will be followed through. It's just not reached that point in the activity company to date to allow us to have that audit process happening yet, but we're moving to that point quite quickly now. I'm happy to hand over to Harpreet to add anything further there.
Yeah, just in terms of the audits, we appointed Shropshire Council's audit team as our internal auditors. We have a full audit plan which has been signed off by the Cornelvi board. There's a number of audits which will be presented to the Cornelvi board in August, and those audits and health checks will also then be sent to the Housing Supervisory Board once they've been considered by the CDL board.
Thank you very much, Harpreet. If I can just add my thanks to the Housing Supervisory Board under your chairmanship, Rob. It is cross-party. I know they work really well together, and I can say, having sat in on one of those meetings, Councillor Vasma, challenge is not an issue, and actually it's really healthy challenge, which is great. So please take our thanks back to the Housing Supervisory Board members. Rob, that'd be really good. So I have a proposer, I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much. So moving on to, you're very welcome to stay with us, Councillor Macy, but you're probably disappearing here. Moving on to item number 8, which is the recommendation for Broseley Neighbourhood Development Plan to proceed to referendum. Councillor Ed Potter.
Thank you very much, Leader. Members will remember a couple of months ago we brought forward a similar paper for Tasley, but this is asking for the Broseley Neighbourhood Development Plan to proceed to referendum. This has been a piece of work that's been ongoing in conjunction with local members, and in particularly Broseley Town Council, who have acted as a local qualifying body since 2018. A draft version of the plan was submitted for independent inspection in May 2001, and the result of that is that the inspector is happy for this to move forward for a referendum, which will take place, if approved today, between the 1st of September and the 6th of October this year. If it gains support by the local residents, it will formally come back to full council to be adopted as a neighbourhood development plan and form part of the strategy development plan for Shropshire. I know a great deal of work's gone into this, lot of local commitment, and I see Dan Thomas on the screen, and I think we've got Caroline Bagnall with us as well, but I can't see that far. Oh, we haven't across, but we've definitely got Dan Thomas. I can see his face on the screen as well. This is a very good news piece for the local residents of Broseley to have a greater say and influence over developments in their neighbourhood, and I very much hope that Cabinet will support this today to move forward to a referendum and let the people of Broseley decide if they're happy to take this forward.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Are you proposing that? Yeah.
Do I have a seconder for that?
Councillor Kirsty Hurst, Bridge North East, happy to second.
Thank you. Thank you, Kirsty. Councillor Dan Thomas, I know you asked if you could speak on this item. Over to you.
Thank you, Leader. Members, I'd just like to speak in support of putting the motion of Broseley's neighbourhood plan to referendum. As many of you will know, part of Broseley falls within my much Wenlock electoral division. Broseley is a popular place to live with a strong economy and a high quality of life, which attracts people to live here. One aim of a neighbourhood development plan is to set out how the town will meet the demand for new homes in the most sustainable way. The plan has been worked on extremely hard by members of the community and the town council, and I fully encourage the electors of Broseley to take part in this referendum and have their say on what development looks like in the parish. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Buckley.
Yes, just briefly, I have apologies from Caroline. She says hopefully it can now go ahead to referendum without delay and we can get it adopted. So further support from Caroline Bagnall. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Not seeing any other hands. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Moving on to, so I've deferred item number 9 until the end of the agenda. So moving on to item number 10, Oswestry Business Improvement District bid renewal. Councillor Ed Potter.
Thank you very much. We are coming to the end of the first term of the Oswestry bid, which has been hugely successful in the Oswestry area, delivering a large amount of support to local businesses, promoting the town and the surrounding area, and in particular during a very challenging period through COVID and the economic ups and downs which have been as part of the fallout of that. Basically, so as we come to the end of the first period, we're moving forward for the bid to go for re-election for a second term. There's recommendations laid out at paragraph 3 within the report. So I think this is a fantastic opportunity to demonstrate the success of bids within Shropshire. It has delivered good economic returns, and most importantly raised the profile. I was in Oswestry on Monday. I had a meeting with the bid and we ran through some of the significant improvements and the advantages it has had within the local community. Should this not be successful, I think one of the things to bear in mind is Oswestry would potentially lose out of an investment in the region of £1.64 million from 2023 onwards, and we also know that the economic development of Oswestry is key with the moving forward of the innovation park. And we're also seeing the completion of the HAS projects in Oswestry Heritage Action Zone, which has seen vast improvements to the alleyways or shuts within the town, shop frontage improvements, and there is it's safe to say there's a real buzz about this, and I would ask that Cabinet support the recommendations laid out at paragraph 3.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Do I have a seconder for this report?
Councillor Ian Nellens, Margaret Drayton West, I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Nellens. Any comments in the room? Nope. Have a proposer and a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item number 11, financial strategy. Councillor Gwilym Butler.
Thank you, Leader. As promised, it's Councillor Gwilym Butler, portfolio holder for finance and corporate resources. As promised at full council, I bring an update on the medium-term financial strategy, taking into account the uncharted waters we are in with wars, inflation and worldwide pressures on supply chains. Just like when we adopted the Shropshire Plan, this actually creates a strategy of how we're going to tackle the challenges that we meet. And let's have no doubt there is serious challenges for all local government councils in the country ahead. And I'm pleased to bring the report as a living document to set out how this council will meet these challenges and to set the context for the work needed to prepare for the budget for 23-24. We started this work back in April, the earliest ever, but we want the process to be as transparent as possible. I welcome the email Councillor Vasmar sent with questions prior to the meeting and happy to work with all members in this process, as well as the documents going through Performance and Management Scrutiny Committee. I'm sure this will be the first of many updates I will bring as and when required to keep Council updated on our ongoing process. Leader, I just move the recommendations, which are: note the action taken to mitigate the inflationary pressures identified since February 22 and the further proposed activity to close the funding gap remaining for the years 23-24 to 27-28. And 3.2, note the proposed timetable for the development of the 23-24 detailed budget and the approach to doing this. And thank you. I move the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. I'm happy to second this report. Questions from Councillor David Vasmar?
Yeah, thanks very much. Yes, I've submitted some detailed questions which you mentioned, Councillor Butler, in your presentation, and I will pursue those, but I'm not going to raise all those here because it would be too much really for this meeting. However, I would say that my concerns, I mean, we are in a very serious situation. I welcome the nature of this report and the fact that you very much are acknowledging that we are in a very, very difficult situation. And, you know, with, for example, with the inflationary pressures of 8.3 million, a funding gap of, you know, 27.5 million, they are very serious issues we have to face. And one of my concerns, I think, really in this report, and I'm sure that as it goes on, we'll get more details. There are lots of references to ways in which we can save money, ways in which we can analyse the way in which our services are provided. But I think we need more detail on that, and you know, it's going forward. I hope that future meetings we would have more to go on. I mean, I do think there is a danger. I mean, in the past, I think there's been a danger of complacency within the authority. I don't think that's so now, but certainly, you know, and looking at the other authorities you make reference to who've had problems in the past, and you mentioned Wirral Council, for example, they suffered from a complacency, which I think has been evidenced in the past in this authority. They've also had problems with achieving savings, which are also a problem. You know, regularly we don't achieve savings. I mean, it's about 38% of savings are not achieved regularly. So I very much welcome this report, but I'm looking forward to, as I say, to more details going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Vasmar. Councillor Buckley.
Yes, thank you. And the report is interesting. I'm glad to see the emphasis on the inflationary pressures, because we'll have all seen this morning inflation has gone up again to 9.4%, and the prediction is it's going to go higher again. What I'd like to understand is how that splits out between capital and revenue streams, because overall the council is, despite rescheduling of capital projects, there is still an emphasis on capital spend rather than revenue, and I'm very concerned that the inflationary costs within construction projects may be the higher end or even above that 9%. So can some work be done, or answers given to members, whether the inflation splits evenly across capital and revenue, and what implications that has for our budget going forward? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Councillor Butler, did you want to come back on that one?
I will start with, and then I might bring in Ben Jay as well to comment, if that's okay. Councillor Vasmar, yes, we're on the same page. And as I say, this document, like when I brought the Shropshire Plan to Council, is setting the scene on how we will do this. And I really want the whole of Council to be involved. And I agree, there needs to be far more detail. and far more proposals. Just like we bring different strategies down under the Shropshire Plan, that's what I'll be doing under the financial strategy. And I'm hopeful that all those detailed proposals will be going through the scrutiny process. So you'll have plenty of time to bring that forward. In respect of the capital and revenue streams, it's obviously inflation does have a big piece of that, and when we did the last review on the capital programme, we put in there the increased costs for the Whitchurch swimming pool, for example, and we take that on board. But I will just ask Ben to comment if there is any difference on the way we look at inflation pressures between the capital and the revenue budget. Ben, are you there, please?
Yes, I'm here. So if you can all hear me, I'll just give a quick response to the councillor's question. In broad terms, we are appraising different types of inflation risk in all areas. And you can see from within the detail of the report and the appendix that we are looking both at pay and at non-pay, and we are looking at contractual obligations in the supply chain, and we will of course be looking at revenue and capital as well. That will come forward very much as part of the ongoing monitoring that we are doing for the financial position as we progress through the course of the current financial year, and we will be able to bring forward on the back of the work that we're doing through months 2, 3 and 4, and as we move towards the quarterly report that will come forward to members, that will provide further detail on what we're actually seeing in the current year, both on revenue and on capital. I'm expecting that some of the areas of capital inflationary pressures could be quite serious. We will need to look at those in terms of what that means for different capital schemes and to what extent any inflationary pressures can be absorbed within the contingency amounts, which are normally, as per good practice, included within those schemes. But that information will be coming back to members in as transparent a manner as we can manage, given the complexity of the situation that we're facing.
Thank you, Ben. I don't see any other hands in the room. Councillor Butler's proposed it. I'm happy to second it. All those in favour? Thank you. I should have said actually thanks Ben for all the work that the team's doing on this, because I know it's you know, we started very early this year. Moving on to item number 12, which is the council tax energy rebate discretionary scheme approval. Councillor Gwilym Butler.
Thank you, Leader. I welcome this report. We have been given just under £600,000 discretionary fund from the government to provide additional support for households to supplement the council tax energy rebates. As with all government money, it comes with guidelines on how we must distribute it. We've looked at the options between us, and I believe that the funding will support those people who are going to be suffering the most that we can support during the financial crisis. I believe it's my opinion that there will be further funding coming down the line. So we will just have to wait and see. I'll just move the recommendations, Chair, to recommend approach would be to progress both options B and C as set out in paragraph 2.4 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Do I have a seconder for that one?
Councillor Potter, I'm happy to second that.
Thank you. Any questions on that? No. OK, I have a proposer. I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much. That one's going through. So now moving on to item number 9. Councillor Potter will take over the chair, and Councillors Butler, Picton and Gittins will leave the room.
Right then, thank you very much, everyone. This is this paper's Cabinet will remember we brought forward a paper several months ago at the beginning of May, which asked us to go out for a 6-week consultation in relation to this policy, which resulted in no feedback. Cabinet is now asked to approve the implementation of the policy. The policy sets out the approach the council will take to enforcement, and specifically how financial or civil penalties will be determined to deal with the failures by those who engage in letting agency work and property management businesses in relation to the following: ensuring only permitted fees are charged, membership publication thereof in relation to redress the client money protection schemes, transparency and publication of fees and charges. The level of the financial penalties that can be imposed by the council varies depending on the infringement. However, they can be up to £30,000. It is for the council to determine the level of each penalty up to the maximum set in law. To ensure the penalties are used fairly and set at an appropriate level, the policy sets out the factors that will be considered and the methods that will be used before the financial penalty is imposed. Factors are based on statutory guidance produced by the government, and the policy follows best practice which has been set by England's lead enforcement authority, National Trading Standards Estates and Lettings Agency team. This is a statutory responsibility of the council to regulate specific aspects of the letting agency and property management market. This is something that we have to do, and I'm pleased to be bringing this forward for approval today. As I say, it's been out to consultation for 6 weeks. No feedback came back on that, and I'm happy to move the recommendations to adopt this policy. So if I'll move the recommendations and ask for a seconder, and then I'll take questions from Councillor Buckley.
Councillor Kirsty Hurst-Knight, happy to second.
Thank you. Councillor Buckley.
Just wanted to query about the quorum, because it is noted that so many Conservative cabinet members have financial interests as private landlords, that there are only, as I understand, 4 of you in the room. What is the quorum, please, to continue a cabinet meeting?
Could I ask Tim Collard, the monitoring officer, to answer that?
It's set out in the executive procedure rules. It's either a quarter or 3, whichever is the largest. So I think we meet the quorum on both tests.
So just to clarify, 2 cabinet members can meet and make decisions of millions of pounds of this
No,
council.
3.
But you said a quarter, which would be 1 out of 8, 2 out of 8.
But then it's a quarter or 3, whichever is the largest.
So
it's
3 members.
And we have 4 here.
So 3 members out of 74 can meet and make decisions for millions of pounds.
They can.
I think it's a sorry state of affairs when so many of you had to leave the room.
We're all abiding by the rules, and I think it's sensible that those members who have pecuniary interests have taken the decision to step away and not take part in that. You know, the rules are laid out, and we are keen to follow those. So, are there any questions? No. Can I ask all those in favour, please show? And that's approved. And I don't think there's any more business, so we'll close the meeting. Thank you very much.